Our next guest started a software company with only one short-term contract. In his youthful enthusiasm, he made the mistake of taking a long-term lease. He learned the art of reducing costs to the barest minimum and finding new ways to bring in revenue. After years of tenuous existence, he found his place. But through all of it, he had lots of time to think about what was really important, what was really worth doing. Now, he mentioned to Lynn and I that he was going to a Caribbean conference where he hoped to get a glimpse of one of his heroes, Richard Branson. He was visualizing that moment. So while sailing a catamaran, out of the sky dropped a kiteboarder who had got on the wrong side of wind, and it was none other than Richard Branson, just dropped out beside his boat. Our friend fished him out of the water, and we received a picture of them arm in arm, giving a toast to life. I mean, goal setting is this guy's expertise. Our next guest believes passionately in the importance of setting goals, and he's created an initiative to encourage others. Please welcome Jason Lindstrom.
Good evening. Thanks very much for the introduction, Sam. That Richard Branson story was 99% true. Most importantly, Richard did show up. It was a really fun day, and he is my hero. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, but more importantly, I want to tell you a bit about Bucket List. And I'd also like to issue you a challenge and hopefully inspire you a little bit. So up on screen is a screenshot of bucketlist.org. It's a platform to help you track and achieve your life goals. Currently, we have around 190,000 members and almost 3 million goals. As far as I understand it, we are the world's largest database of bucket lists or life goals. My long-term mission is to help 100 million people to be on the path of goal setting, and I'm hoping to convert quite a few people tonight. It's been really interesting. As we watched our community grow, one of the strangest phenomenons that I've seen is that a large number of people are sometimes pursuing goals that aren't always good for themselves. Sometimes they even cause pain. Consequently, I started doing some research to better understand what type of life goals make people happy. And so I'm going to share with you a quick graph. This is not by my design. It's by a fellow by the name of Tony Hsieh. He wrote a great book called Delivering Happiness. Running along the bottom is a time axis, and running vertically is a happiness axis. And down at the bottom left-hand corner is pleasure. Pleasure is a funny thing. I love to partake in pleasure. I love things like chocolate chip cookies. I love the occasional pint of beer. And these things on their own are totally fine. They're great. But if you add them up over time, they often have negative consequences. And I think one of the best ways to describe this concept is to give you a quick example. So there's a bit of audience participation. Can anybody guess, or does anybody know who this musician is? You're kind of shy, aren't we? I heard like 5 different people. It's Keith Richards. He's a member of the Rolling Stones, one of the world's most famous rock bands. And Keith Richards was probably most famous for his ability to party and do an amazing job. So he's on stage there. You can see he's worked his way through 2 Coors cans. He's got a bottle of Jack Daniels in the background, and he's having himself an awesome time. I found a great quote from Keith. Let me be clear about this. I don't have a drug problem. I have a police problem. And I think this kind of synthesizes him as a man. I love the Rolling Stones. If I was to fast forward 30 years later and take a look at Keith, this is what he looks like now. Some would say the years have not been that kind. I still think he's a great musician, but I think it's an important takeaway to know that some of the things we pursue in life don't always give us the long-term pleasure that we're looking for. The second type of happiness I want to talk about is being in a state of passion or in flow state. When it comes to bucket list, a large number of goals on our site kind of fall into this category. And again, I think the best way to describe what passion or flow state is to share a quick story. So in 2005, there was a skateboarder by the name of Danny Way. He's to this day one of the world's best skateboarders. And he had the idea, why not build a ramp and jump over the Great Wall of China? Kind of a crazy idea. Here's the full jump. Not only did he decide to jump over the Great Wall, he chose the widest part. It was approximately 70 to 75 feet of that crossing. He climbed up the tower, which was wobbly and poorly built. He dropped in, went screaming down the ramp, along the flats, shot off the other side, managed to clear the wall, but when he landed on the flat transition and exploded. He pancaked. He broke his ankle and he blew his ACL. Now, any normal person would not have done this. Any normal person would have just walked away. In fact, the previous 2 years prior to this, somebody on a BMX had tried to do the exact same stunt and had died. But at this point, any normal person should have just walked away. He was rushed to the hospital, but the very next day he came back and tried another try. What they had done overnight is they made the ramp higher and they had shortened the transition to give him more speed so he had a better chance of clearing the flat transition area at the top. He dropped it again this time with a broken ankle, with a torn ACL, went screaming on the ramp, shot off the other side, and landed perfectly. He landed with over 4 Gs of pressure in the transition area, and he did that with a broken ankle and a torn ACL. Just to give that a little bit of perspective, a Formula One driver, when they're driving their car, pulls 2 Gs around a corner. And just to prove it wasn't a fluke, he went up one more time and did it again, but this time he did a 360 over the transition. So some of you are probably saying, this guy's he's a nut job, he's an adrenaline junkie, he's crazy. But the thing is, that's not the case at all. He was in a state of flow. To pull these sorts of stunts off, you have to be completely mindful, totally present, and not thinking of anything else. The really cool thing about being in a flow state is that we can all achieve it, everybody here today. A musician, when they're doing a performance of a lifetime, will also be in a flow state. A computer programmer, when they're tackling a really challenging logical problem, can also get into a flow state. For those of you who mountain bike, ski, kayak, do yoga, this is something that's very accessible to everybody here. And that's why I think it's so important to set very good and achievable life goals. This is a quote from Abraham Maslow. He's the founder of Maslow's hierarchy. He said basically that being in a state of flow or peak performance was basically like being at the top of his pyramid, or being in a state of self-actualization. At the very top of the happiness architecture is serving a higher purpose or meaning. I kind of like this one. It's simple in its elegance, and I think everybody here kind of intuitively gets it. For some people, this might be religion. Others, it might be family. For myself, my wife and I, we donated some money and time to a children's school down in Guatemala. So how do we achieve our goals? There was a really great study done by the Dominican University, which is in the state of California, that had 4 key tips. And if you're to follow these tips, your chances of achieving your life goals go up significantly. And they're quite simple. First of all, you got to write them down. Well, no, first of all, you have to think of them and then write them down. Next, it's important to tell a friend because that builds an accountability. Number 3, you want to check in weekly. And number 4, it's really important to start today. A lot of you will come to an event like this, hear great ideas, want to share them with the world, but when you go home, you don't take action. And I think it's critically important to take action on our life goals. I read a really great article from the Huffington Post. It was from a nurse who did palliative care in a home where people are on their deathbed. And she had a really great message to share. These are the most common regrets of life. Number 1, I wish I had the courage to live my true life. I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expect of me. I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends, and I wish I let myself be happier. And on my last and final message, you're never too young or too old to make shit happen. So get out there and do it. Thank you very much.